Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Gurudeva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Chinmayam Vyapiyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Om Shri Chinmaya Satgurave Namaha. Can everyone hear me? It's loud enough? It's said by some of the rishis that the Vedas were only written so that these Upanishads were preserved and maintained. And really they're the prize of our Vedas. So the Upanishads is considered the most sacred of knowledge. And so it's really our privilege that we're able to contemplate and dwell on these verses. Many of you are familiar with the basic introduction of Upanishads, so I'm not going to elaborate on that too much. Pujya Gurudev, when he started teaching, he actually started with Upanishad. And only when he saw that some people weren't able to quite, not that they can't grasp it, but not able to then bring it into practice. Because it's so subtle in everyday life, if they want to deal with something nitty-gritty, then maybe Upanishad wouldn't be the thing that they can implement. And then later on, he started teaching the Bhagavad Gita and the Prakarana Granthas. But when he started that first full year, he just did Upanishads. And in one of the recordings of him talking in America, I think it's the Kena Upanishad recording, the first 1.5 hours, he has narrated just the student's quest and need for this knowledge and journey to find a guru. He didn't even start the mantra. Just to make people understand the framework of the mind of the student of Upanishad. The student of Upanishad has purified their mind. And the most important quality of the purified mind of the Upanishadic student is Vairagya. Because they have left. They have left the house, they have left everything. And they have journeyed to the Himalayas to find their guru. Not knowing where to find them, not knowing if they'll find them, just determined to get this knowledge, they leave. Not knowing whether they'll have food, not knowing whether they'll have shelter. And I was just in Uttarkashi last week before, and there's still such wandering sadhus. Have no plan. They leave their house just to seek this knowledge. And nothing else matters. And so the first thing we must understand about Upanishad is that Vairagya is a prerequisite. We may understand intellectually because we are intellectual beings. But for us to be able to imbibe this quality of Vairagya is extremely important. And so Gurudev would say, maybe we don't have it completely yet in our lives, but at least for this 1 hour, while you're listening, to be able to put everything else aside. For this 1 hour while you're listening, you're not a mom, you're not a dad, you're not a wife, you're not a husband. You just exist in this moment as a seeker of truth. This quality of Vairagya, again, since most of y'all are familiar with the study of Vedanta, translates as detachment or dispassion. But in everyday thinking, it would translate in the ability to be objective. When we see something, we may not realize how quickly we judge it as per our likes and dislikes. We might see the aesthetics of this room, and it may not be a very strong like or dislike, but we react with our likes and dislikes. If not necessarily our likes and dislikes, we react with, I know. We have a strong sense of wanting to be in control, wanting not to feel less in any which way. And so we hear, we see, not only in a class, even in everyday conversation, yeah, I know. It might not even be that I know it in tremendous detail. So somebody might talk about a political situation and I actually don't know the nuances of it, but yeah, I've heard of it. These reactions happen so quickly, and they colored with not only our likes and dislikes, but our ahankar, and we'll be elaborating on that very extensively. So Vairagya is to be able to put that aside. Likes and dislikes, put aside. Whatever I know before this moment in time, put aside. Whatever I think, I feel, I value, put aside. To be able to see it as clearly as it actually is right now. So Upanishad student, having purified their mind, goes in search of a guru that can give this knowledge. Finding the guru, surrendering at that guru's feet, then the knowledge that the guru gives is Upanishad. Whatever spoken to alleviate the suffering of that student. And remember, the suffering of that student is not pain and stress and heartache. No, that's not the suffering of the student. The suffering of that student is wanting freedom from samsara, wanting complete liberation, wanting to know what's beyond this body and this identity that we have had all these lifetimes. The suffering of that student is not wanting ignorance to be the mode of how I operate and see the world. That's the pain of the seeker. No other thing matters. It's, I know the scriptures say I am Brahman and I'm not experiencing it yet. That's the suffering of the Upanishadic student. Therefore, the knowledge that's given to remove this suffering is Upanishad. The knowledge that frees us from samsara. So Puja Guruji, in his commentary on page number 4, has broken up the exact meaning of the word Upanishad, and like I said, you're familiar with it. Upa is to come near, Ni is to be sitting low, Sat is to sit, and Ni is to sit low. Gurudev also further explains how the root sound of each of these syllables can be then elaborated to show that there's a desire to exhaust one's vasanas, there's the determination to be able to understand, and the knowledge has to be of only the self. And since this is in the commentary, you can read this on your own, and I will not elaborate on it here. So this very word, Upanishad, itself has so much meaning. And here for this week we're taking up Ganapati Atharvsirsa Upanishad. While I've been here in these last few days, most people seem to think it's a new discovery of Upanishads. And actually new Upanishads do get discovered quite regularly, surprisingly, because the Vedas were so vast, and some of it we haven't been able to preserve, and then somebody finds a little snippet that wasn't kept or wasn't as well known as before. So they existed. It's not that they got created. They've been existing, but they become more well known. However, that's not true with Ganapati Atharvsirsa. It's extremely well known, especially in Maharashtra, where they chant it daily, weekly. Maybe not as well known as an Upanishad, because associated with the form of the Lord. But all the form of the Lords and all the names that we have of the Devatas today, in Vedic culture, weren't worshipped the way we worship them today. In Vedic culture, they didn't have Devata and Ishta Devatas. They had more the forces of nature. And so they would have understood the word. Like with Vishnu being all-pervading, they see it as all-pervading rather than the form of Vishnu. And so too here with Ganapati. But because nowadays we associate it so much with the form, maybe assumed that it's not an Upanishad. But if you see the first part of this, it's completely Upanishad. And then yes, towards the tail end, there's sadhanas, which again is there in all the Upanishads. They give the highest knowledge, and if for those who aren't able to grasp the highest knowledge, they give the sadhanas. And the sadhanas are associated with the form of Lord Ganesha. But we're going backwards. So, Upanishad and Shirsa, meaning the head, meaning the most important. And what is the most important? Atharva. A in Sanskrit is a negating particle, like in English we have an. So if you put an in front of the word, it becomes the opposite of whatever the word means. In Sanskrit, A acts in a similar way. Tharva means to shake. So atharva is not shaking. And here, very specifically, the shaking of fear. So atharva means not shaking, but in English, a better translation would be fearless. Atharvasirsa, the head, the most important, is fearless. And Upanishads, that knowledge which makes us fearless. Fear is such a prevalent part of our lives. We may underestimate how much of it we have within us and how much it controls us. And so even though this is not a very Upanishadic question, why would you brush your teeth? Most of us don't have such love for dental hygiene. We do it out of fear. We wouldn't want to be socially, stigmatized or ignored because of bad breath. We do it because we want to still be able to chew our food when we get older. When you're brushing your teeth in the morning, you're not thinking, my motivation is fear. We just do it on autopilot. But yet, the motivation is fear. Mainly, there's just two motivating forces: love and fear. And so when we're not loving, we're fearing. And I give you this example to make us more aware of how it's there and we don't even notice it. So much of the reasons we comply to rules, whether it be government rules of traffic or whether it be social rules or company laws, is not love or even understanding. A lot of it is fear. And so we may not experience it in its full-fledged form, but it's definitely there throughout the day as we're doing our routine. Another way to think about fear is, or to understand fear, to reflect on it. We're living in what we may call as samsara. Again, you're familiar with the word. That which constantly changes. Everything that we experience, it changes. We may notice the change or we may not. But when we know that there's change, it brings about in us a sense of uncertainty. If we think it's going to remain the same, we feel very safe. We know how to deal. We know how to do. But if it changes, then we become disorientated. It takes us a while to figure out now how to cope with this or now how to do this. And it might not be, dramatic or drastic, but even small things. Like when people move countries and they don't know the names of, brands for what maybe atta or milk. It's not a huge thing, but you're sitting there a little bit disorientated because it's all different. It changed to what you normally used to. So change leads to uncertainty. And then uncertainty leads to insecurity because we don't feel as confident. And then that leads to fear. I could say samsara leads to fear. And that would be fine, truth. But to understand how so, then we're more willing to accept that it's so prevalent in our lives. Whenever change happens, maybe in our age, body-wise, there's this, now what do we do? It's a form of fear. Change happens in our life. Maybe markets change, money is lost, or money is even gained. Now what do we do? That uncertainty has the element of fear in it. Atharva, there's no fear. So to go backwards, there'd be no insecurities, no uncertainty, no change. Therefore, it's considered the highest, the most sacred, the head, Atharvasirsa. Ganapati, one of Lord Ganesha's names. And as it will be coming later on in the Upanishad, the form of Ganesha is called Ganapati, be related to that story. Probably one of the most violent stories that we have in our Puranas. Parvati ji makes Ganesha out of her own body. And so he exists. Parvati represents Prakriti, matter, earth. And so our bodies are most certainly created out of Parvati. We are, the body especially, matter. So Parvati ji created this body, and then in the story, he refuses to accept Shiva. For whatever reason, he denies Shiva entry and acknowledging that Shiva is his father. Body cannot exist without Shiva. Creation cannot take place with matter alone. Unless it's touched by the spark of life, Shiva, spirit, truth, essence, it cannot continue to exist. So Ganesha, denying this essence, touch of life, leads to Shiva cutting his head off. Dramatically depicted, but basically saying that matter cannot exist without spirit. He wouldn't last. It just wouldn't last. And so, story-wise, Parvati ji gets upset, Shiva feels bad, they find an elephant, they put the head, and then Shiva breathes life back into this creation. And now he exists. So much drama. And all we have to know is Shiva breathes life. And then he can exist. Without Shiva breathing life, it will perish. Story-wise, Shiva breathes life back into Ganesha. He felt bad for the whole scenario, and so makes Ganesha the chief of his army. Shiva's army is called the Shiva Ganas, Gana, and Pati means chief, lord, master, and so he is the master of all the Ganas, Lord Shiva's army. But Gana also means measurement, in the sense that we are constantly dividing the world, then labeling it, categorizing it, and creating that kind of a structure. So if you see any of the sciences, biology, then they'll just, I think, what is it, mammals, amphibians, and reptiles. And then physics, there's this humongous periodic table, and then within the table also there's this kind of elements and that kind of elements. And so we're constantly creating categories. And we do so to help us to understand. But we also constantly creating divisions. And then we start to see it all as very, very different. But Gana here is whatever vision that is being created, he is the Lord of that as well. So a tendency is for us to divide, even in terms of our thinking. We divide me and then whatever else is there. And the me might include me being a part of a team, whether it be my nationality or whether it be a sports team or whether it be a family. But me and then separate. Or even if it's something that's not even, with like biology, when we see the categories, then me, that's my category. And the others, that's not me. It might be useful in terms of gaining knowledge, all the divisions, but it's not useful in terms of us creating divisions in the way we see the world. Because the minute we create any kind of division, I am separate to whatever it is I have created the division of. But Ganapati is whatever the divisions are, he is the Lord of all. In a way, trying to bring back, when we separate, the lordship of it all being one, reminding us that the source of it is all, just that same one. So Ganapati, in a sense, is bringing back all those divisions. So, story-wise, army, the head of the army of Lord Shiva. Philosophy-wise, the head of all divisions that can possibly be created, where no division exists. Ganapati. Upanishads are always teaching that knowledge that helps us to unite and see oneness and remove the sense of separateness and duality. So the Upanishad of fearlessness and uniting. Ganapati Atharvsirsa Upanishad. It's in Atharva Veda, as the name of the Upanishad itself suggests. And so all Upanishads in Atharva Veda start with the invocation mantra of Bhadram Karnebi. Some of you may be familiar with it. Some of you may have also studied it in other Upanishads. We'll look at it just briefly here today. Can we do it together, or would you all prefer lead and follow? Are you all familiar with it? Yes? Together.
Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunuyama Devaah Bhadram Pashye Makshabhir Yajatraah Sthirairangaistushtumagam Sastanubihi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vriddhashravah Swasti na Pusha Vishwavedah Swasti nastarkshyo arishtanemihi Swasti no brahaspatir dadatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om is the sound symbol of truth. And it's going to be coming in the Upanishad itself quite elaborately later on. So we'll wait to discuss Om. Bhadram Karnebi Shrunuyama Deva. May what we listen to be auspicious. This, in terms of sadhana, would be a full-time job. So I give you homework for today. May what I listen to be auspicious. We try? One full day? Then you'll notice how the Shanti mantras really are recipes of conducting our behavior so that sadhana is happening 24/7. In terms of speech, because what I'm listening to, first and foremost, will be my own speaking. Of course, I'm listening to other things as well. But I can control my speech much easier than I can control anything that I'm listening to outside. And I am constantly listening. In fact, even when I'm thinking and not saying it out aloud, I'm still hearing my own speech. So Badram Karnebi Shrunuyamadeva can also be, may my speech be auspicious. And again, this is such an immense sadhana. It requires such alertness of thought to make sure that everything is auspicious. We've had, during the centenary celebration, we've had a really wonderful creative idea where one of our acharyas brought about that every week you do a different sadhana. And so the easiest sadhanas for speech are things like chanting. Chant Hanuman Chalisa every day. That's sadhana of speech. Then it gets harder. Speak only that which is beneficial. Speak only that which is truthful. And most beautiful, don't speak. The sadhanas are a class on their own, but in terms of Upanishads, Badram Karnebi is the suspicion when we're listening to Upanishad, that itself is Badram. Upanishads is auspicious. And so in our listening to it, we're already following this part of the Shanti mantra. But the idea being, may I completely listen. May I absorb it in my listening. And Upanishads, or all of this knowledge, is always through listening because of Shabda Praman. Right? The means of gaining this knowledge is I can't see it. It's not available to my five senses. It's not something I can go out there and discover or measure. Somebody found it in the depth of their meditation and had that experience and then speaks about it. And only when I hear it do I even come to know that it's a possibility, that it exists. On my own, I could live my whole life and not know of its existence. What's existence? Brahman. In fact, I may have lived lifetimes already not knowing it existed. So while studying Upanishad, since it's only available through Shabda Praman, may my mind absorb it. The auspiciousness here is if I can actually absorb what it is I am listening to. Badram Karnebi Shrunuyamadeva. So if we did this mantra in different settings, it would mean different things. Because it can have a very sadhana implication, and it can have a very shravana mananam, like in this moment, to be able to absorb. Badram pasye makshabirya jatraha. May what I see be auspicious. So Upanishadic style or Vedic style is you give one or two in the category to indicate the whole category. So it's given ears and eyes, and so now you understand all the five senses. May what I smell be auspicious, may what I taste be auspicious, may my touch be auspicious. But these two in specific are mentioned because our thoughts occur in two mediums. In the medium of sound, which is words, and so when we are thinking, we hear ourselves saying whatever it is that we are saying in our heads. And the other medium of our thinking is form. We see. Now, we may not see a bright picture in our head the way we see on iPads or TVs, but we see. We see images. And sometimes when people are talking and we get an image in our head and it's very funny, we can't even help but laugh because that image is there in our head. The mind works in only these two mediums. Even though smell and taste and touch are also senses bringing in information of the world, our thoughts tend to be less of those. And in fact, we may not even be able to remember what a smell is. Like right now, even though I know what a rose smells of, right now I'm not able to bring up that memory immediately. The mind doesn't work as quickly with the other senses as it does with form and sound. And so if I can really purify these two, immediately my thoughts are purified. And immediately I have a stronger management or control of my ability to see auspiciousness and be auspiciousness. Because thoughts think in terms of sound and form. Also, if what I see and hear is auspicious and thoughts are working in terms of sound and form, then the desires that get generated by the information coming in will also remain auspicious. Because desires come from what I hear and what I see. If I start talking very passionately and elaborately about whitewater rafting on Gangaji, after a while you'll think, oh, I should go. When we see these images of these perfect beach resorts, we look up at the picture and we think, oh, so nice. I should go. Desire gets generated within us from what we hear, what we see. And so if I can maintain to the best of my ability that I see only auspicious things, I will want auspicious things. If I hear only auspicious, if somebody is saying inauspicious things, walk away. It's not going to be so easy. Or stop listening. Because if we listen, the thought goes into our head and at some point can generate a desire. Sthirairangai stushtuvagam. May my limbs be healthy, may they be strong. And so this is a beautiful thing about Upanishads. They don't deny that the world exists. The world exists. And so may I be strong in my body to be able to live in this world. Doing what? Praising the Lord. Even to praise the word, to praise the Lord, we need health. We need strength. And our praise can be through our words or it can be through our actions. Vyashema deva yahitam yadayuhu. And may I live a long life. And this is things that people would normally ask for in prayer. So Upanishad says, sure. If that's what you want, may you have it. Because when we want something and we told no, we're just going to want it more. Upanishad rishis were very clever. Also, if we want something and we're told no, then unnecessary guilt gets created about it, and the mind gets very distracted and preoccupied. There's too much noise. And so very easy. Have it if that's what you want. Hail, hearty, powerful, long life. And then it invokes the devatas, different devatas. Swasti na Indro vritta shravahas. Indra is fame. So many of us want fame. We want people to know who we are. Sometimes when I go to a new center, people say, "Do you remember me?" I know also a few people in the Hong Kong ashram, and any new person comes to the new. "Who's your mother?" "Your mother knows me." This is fame. It's not Michael Jackson fame. It's in my own bubble of my own world. I want to be known. So we invoke Lord Indra. May we have the fame that we seek, to be known, and to be known well, or to be known for good things. Indra Devata is also associated with rain, and so blessings. And so the forces of the world that we need to live in harmony with. But I'm going to do this from a more subjective point of view. We can do it from a more Devata point of view, but I'm going to do it more from what it is that we tend to want and invoke the Lord for. Swasti na Pusha Vishwaveda, the sun. So again, from a Devata point of view, this is fire, element, heat, light, that again all affects us. But the sun, so symbolic of knowledge, understanding, wisdom. Again, something we desire ourselves. Nobody wants to be seen as foolish or dumb. Sometimes far more insulting than anything else they can say about us is if they insult our intelligence. So this wanting of knowledge and understanding, and to have that respect from others, and that even that self-respect within ourselves of wanting knowledge. Swastina Pusha Vishwavedaha. No, right. Swastina Staksho Arishtanemihi. Invoking Garuda and describing him as being swift in movement. And so from Devata point of view, the aspect of movement and wind. But also power. Right? Never mind Garuda being the lord of all eagles, just an eagle. Power. And we see it even on the US. They use it as a symbol of power. And we want power. Agree? No? Yes? Do you want your husband or your wife to listen to you? You want the kids to listen to you? Power. More power, of course, to different degrees we will want, but this much power we want, that we can get our way with the people that we live with. Swasti no Brahaspatir Dadatu. To invoke the Guru. And that's a slightly different sentiment, because now it changes mood to surrender. So let's talk first about why would Upanishad Mantra grant us power and fame and self-respect. Jim Carrey has got some interesting talks on YouTube that are easily available, and he's been very influenced by Advaita Vedanta. And he gives credit to the teachings of Vedanta for the knowledge that he has. And he starts one speech very dramatically, because Jim Carrey is just very dramatic, saying, I wish that every person on this planet had as much money and fame and success as I have had, so that they would know it doesn't mean anything. When we don't have it, a part of us is so convinced it's going to give us happiness. A part of us is so distracted that one thing that I don't have, I may have so many things, but that one thing that I don't have, that's the reason for all my grief. And the mind becomes so consumed with getting that one thing. Where is the space to think about Brahman? If the mind is so consumed with trying to fulfill that desire, because there's still the misunderstanding within us that that's going to give me joy. That's going to make everything perfect. When I get that one thing. And so the Lord says, take it. And you'll think, oh, it wasn't the one thing I needed. And suddenly, the mind becomes a little bit more available to dwell on the one thing that is needed for me to find happiness. And so it's not that the Upanishads have misunderstood or the rishis have gotten distracted, but they understand that we get distracted. And so when every other desire is fulfilled, then we can lift our mind to something higher. Even Gurudev would say that if a child is hungry, don't give knowledge. Give food. Once they're full, then you can give knowledge. And we are hungry for all these other things. We are hungry for name and fame and power. So have every success. But know that it's only the means. It's not the end. Not to get lost in it, because then the last one says, Swastino Brahaspatir Dadatu. As long as I have surrendered to my Guru, Brahaspati is the Guru of all the Devatas, even though I pursue and get slightly distracted with all these other things, I won't get lost in it, because I'll come back to the feet of my Guru. And there, at that most sacred spot, I will be able to receive what I really want, what I really need. And so as long as I come back to that, Swastino Brahaspatir Dadatu, as long as I come back, the Guru's guidance will be able to give me Atharvasirsa, this most important fearlessness, and be able to help me to see with eyes of oneness rather than duality. And so it's the extremely beautiful Shanti mantra that has such depth of meaning, and it can be seen from different perspectives. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Again, since most of you all have been studying, you all are aware that 3 Shantis So that right now, all those cosmic forces that influence us, because everything influences us. Our body is made up of 5 elements. And so if it's really cold outside, that's going to affect us. All those cosmic forces that we have no control over, may they bless us so that we can stay focused and absorb Upanishad. The surrounding forces, it's terribly cold outside, and so somebody turned on the heater and then it got too hot. Things that are controllable but not necessarily in that moment by me. May those things too be conducive so that my mind can abide in this knowledge. And lastly, my own mind. May it have Shanti. Sometimes with such sincerity we bring ourselves early in the morning to class, and then the whole time we're wondering, did we put enough money in the meter? And we're not able to absorb that moment completely. So may my mind be free from every other distraction to be able to dwell on this knowledge. We'll conclude every class with just a very short meditation on whatever we've spoken about on that class. So I'll give you just a few seconds to adjust yourself, to make yourself completely comfortable. Maximum base, so feet flat on the ground, or if you're sitting on the floor, cross-legged. Adjust yourself to be upright and as straight as possible, but at the same time relaxed. Hands gently on your lap. Just be aware if they are clenched or if they are relaxed. And just taking a few deep breaths in at a speed that is comfortable to you. As you breathe in, slightly deeper than regular, so that you can remain aware and conscious of your breath. And as you breathe out, slow and smooth. And with each breath, bring yourself completely into this present moment of time and space. As you become aware of your body, as the breath moves, the body expands and falls. Looking at your body as Prakriti, as matter. Looking at your breath as life force in living matter. They're not separate, nor are they the same. The breath fuses with all the different aspects of body to live in it. Each one of us is matter and essence. But with a deeper understanding, Our breath too is matter. Air is one of the 5 elements. So the life force is something that empowers even the breath. As you watch the breath and the body move with the breath, allow the mind to look for life force. It's not separate. It's not the same.
पूर्णस्य